our guest lecture, we will have some information, uh, maybe how to use stata, because our book actually they used three different softwares or applications: stata, eViews, Excel, and sometimes SPSS. It is not required from you all to do or to learn this all application in this time, but at least you know how to do analysis by using Excel. And inshallah today Dr. Redhwan will give us some information about stata as well. In case you are interested, maybe you can start from today to learn. Today we will have an introduction and basic for using data. Maybe after that, if you are interested, you can improve your skills in using data for analysis, because you still have maybe how many semesters, 5 semesters again, and you will learn other courses in static, maybe inductive static too. Also, you still have chance to learn more data applications for analyzing data, and also in your maybe semester 5 also you will learn again about methodologies, how you analyze data for your research or your thesis after when you want to graduate or you finish your studies. These applications, as I told you before, it is very important to learn, because as economist you have to learn this application for your future work or for your further study if you want to continue your study. Inshallah today we will see this course about stata, and our guest lecturer Dr. Redhwan. Maybe you can start your
Okay, thank you, Dr. Abdullah, for providing me, this, opportunity to share with you, my, idea about stata. And I hope, this, short, discussion about, data will be, beneficial to all, students, joining this, live in stream. Uh, uh, I presume that, the all students, they are, economic students, and that's why, stata is considered, is, important, for them. And we will learn, today why, stata is, important to all, researchers, especially, those, researchers, interested, in economic, field.
yes. Maybe you can share your screen if you would like to start
Host
now.
disabled. Doctor, here, host disabled, participants screen sharing. Uh,
You
I
can
want to allow me to share, my content.
uh, one participant to share time. Okay, I think you are able now to share your screen. Could you
Okay.
try? Could you try again?
Okay, guys. As you can see, today we are going, to discuss about, regression, analysis, using stata. So for the purpose of, this, lecture, I would like for you opening and completing, this, lecture to be able to know what is, stata, and to know, the data in structure, the different type, of, data. And for the purpose of, today, lecture, we are going, to discuss about, cross-sectional, data, and assumptions, behind, the cross-sectional, data before running, multivariate, analysis like, regression analysis. We will cover a discussion on other regression, command, presenting your result, and finally, I will provide you with some, sources that you can refer to have a better understanding, about stata. Now, uh, before we get, familiar with the stata, Let me, provide you with a brief, introduction about, stata. Now, the questions that, may arise when we discuss about, stata, what is, stata? Stata, guys, is, just, a statistical, software, package that, created in 1985 by the Stata, group. Most of the Stata users, especially in the fields of economic, as I just mentioned to you earlier, sociology, political science, biomedicine, and epidemiology. Now, why Stata? Why we have, Stata? Why we don't use other, softwares like, SAS, R, Gretel, SPSS? Now, in the past, Stata has been, less, popular than in its, competitor, such as those, softwares that I just, mentioned to you. But, nowadays, Stata is gaining its, popularity, year by year. The second reason why we have to know about Stata, guys, is that, it is, user friendly when we deal with Stata, as we will, see when we get, familiar with the Stata. Of course, unlike, other, softwares, uh, we can use, command in Stata and request, Stata to run, this, command, for us, right? And of course, Stata is different from, other, software, just like, SPSS, especially when we deal with, a large, data, set. Of course, when we have, very big, data set, it will be, very complicated, for us, to use, software such as, SPSS, right? SPSS will be utilized for those, engage, in, marketing, management, but, for those, they deal with the large, data set, such as, using, panel data or time in series. SPSS will not, be beneficial to them. They cannot, use, SPSS, right? They have, to use other, softwares, just, like, Stata, right? Now, how Stata is different from, other softwares. Now, as I mentioned to you guys, Stata has, commands, and these, commands in Stata are much more initiative and less, fuzzy regarding, punctuation. The good thing about Stata, guys, is that you can, download, new application inside Stata, and those, application will be utilized by other, scholars or other, researchers as, command. When when you get, familiar with the Stata, when you like, Stata, and you engage, too much in Stata, you will be able to, implement, command in the Stata, and this command will be named by you, right? And other, researchers or other scholars can use, the command created, by you. The last, reason, guys, why how Stata is different, as I mentioned to you guys, dealing with the big data set with, various, different types, of file structure in Stata is much, quicker and easier, unlike, other softwares. Now, let us, get, familiar with the Stata. In Stata, guys, we have, four major, windows. We have, the command window. In this, window, we can write, our, command. Okay, so the command, that we have, written will be appeared, in this, window. And we also have, a review window. In the review window, guys, any command that we have, written in the command, window will be appeared in the review window. Variables window. In this window, all, variables and their, label will be shown, in this, window. And finally, we have, result, window. So in this, window, of course, we will be able to observe, the result of the command that we have, conducted, right? Whether, the result of, statistical, or the result of, descriptive analysis, regression, whatever you have, done with the Stata. So it will be appear, there, right? Now, we have, do files, and we have, log, files. when I teach stata to my student, I suggest them to start with log files before doing anything. Why? The importance of log files, guys, is that the commands that you have written and the result will be saved in this file, in log file. So before you start with stata, before you command stata to do anything, you need to create log file. Why? Because the result in the result window will not be saved in that window, right? So the result of the regression, the result of the summary statistic, whatever the result that you have will not be shown, will not be saved, sorry, in the result window. That's why you need to create log file, because the results and the command that you have created, you done or requested stata to do, to execute, will be saved in the log file. This is the importance of the log files. Now we have do files. Of course, when we have a project, we sometimes we need to work on this project for more than one day, right? You cannot do everything in one day, right? So the project may span for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, sometimes, right? When we try with our data to get a better result. Now, to save time, you need to create a do file. Okay, why? Because instead of writing a command every time that you work with this data, you can save your commands in the do file, then just copy your command next day. When you work on next day, you can just simply copy your command from the do file and paste it on the stata instead of writing the command again in next day. And this is the importance of the do file, right? Now, unlike stata, our data will be behind, will not be seen in front of us, right? So the data in stata will be reflected in data editor and data browser. Okay, and we will discuss the difference between the data editor and the data browser, of course, when we deal with this data, right? Here we have if we want to request stata to expand the capacity, right? Because the normal capacity of stata is 32,000 megabyte, if I'm not mistaken. So if we have a big project and we want stata to expand its capacity, we can request stata to do this by increasing the stata capacity by this command. Okay, now we have log using and log close. Remember, guys, we discussed about log file and the importance of the log file, right? Now, how we create the log file, right? To create a log file, guys, you just write log using, and then name your file any name that you like. For example, if you work on the GDB, you can name your file as a GDB file, right? Then comma log and the word replace, right? If you finish with the work for today, you can just write log close. But if you write log close, the stata will be shutting down. So it you close your stata, right? Okay, and if you want to work on the stata next day and you want to know the result that you obtain in next day will be saved in the same file that you have created like the day before. You just write log using name of the file, then log, and instead of writing replace, you write abandon. So the result that you got in next day will be
What?
saved in the same file. Yeah. Anything, guys? Okay. Here we have log off and log on. Sometimes We don't want stata to be shutting down completely, right? Sometimes you want to go and eat, something, or you want to go and break to do, just short, work and come back, to continue your, work, right? So there is no need to, request, stata to be shutting down, completely. You don't have, to write, look close, right? Instead of, requesting, stata to be, shutting down, completely, you can write, look off, and then when you come back to continue your work, just, simply you have to write, log, on, okay? Now, I think better thing to have a better understanding, of stata is to get, familiar with the stata and to so that's why I want you to show we want to show you, the stata and how this, windows will be appear in the stata and what are the do files and the look file. So just, let me share with you the stata. Okay. Okay, guys. This is, how stata looks like, guys. So as you can see, this is, the command window, as I just, told you. So this is, the window whereby you can, write your command. Okay, so for example, guys, I want to know summary command summary of, this, variable. So okay, I will request, stata to provide me with the summary of this, variable, right? Okay. So simply the command, appear in the review window, right? Okay. So as you can see, guys, this window is where you write your command, right? Uh, and review window, as I just told you about, before, is the window where your command will be shown. So any command that you have written in the command window will be reflected in the review window. Okay, let me, write, more command. Okay, for example, I want correlation for this, variables. Okay, and I want to know also summary of this variable as well. So as you can see, guys, so all commands that, I have, written are shown in the review window. Okay, so this is window where, your command will be, reflected or, appear. Now, you can, select, the command and delete, them. You can, for example, select, the command, and if you want, you can delete them. You can send them to, the do file to be saved in the do, file. Okay, and you can also, guys, to you can, rank your command in the descending or ascending, order. Okay, for example, here by clicking on the command heading. Okay, as you can see here, when I click, on the command, heading, my command, shown on the order that, on the ascending or descending, order. Okay, now when you write, a wrong, command, for example, that, command will be shown in the red, color. Okay, for example, let me write, a wrong command, and we will see how this, command will be appeared in this, window. Okay. Now, as you can see here, it's written unrecognized, command. So this command was not, recognized by stata, and that's why, the command is shown in the red, color. Right. Now, if I want to select, those, mistaken, command, or, the commands with the red, color, I can just, click on this, heading. Okay. So I click on this, heading. So all, command with the red color will be appear on the beginning. So I can just, simply select them and delete, them. Okay. So this is, about, the review window and, command window. Now, here, the variable, window, guys. So as you can see, the variable window is the window whereby, my, variables and label will be shown. So all my variables and label will be shown, in this, window, guys. all variables that I have are reflected, in this, window. Okay. Now, if I want guys to, for example, adjust, the, type of, a variable, specific, variable, and the format of, a variable, for example, I can just, click simply on the variable that I want to adjust, then unlock, the this, side. Then I can, adjust, the type, of the variable and the format of the variable as I wish. Okay. Uh, so these are okay. Still, the result, window, guys. This is, the result window as I mentioned to you. Okay. So all results are shown in this, window, but you need to bear in mind that, stata will not, save the result in this, window. Okay. So when you close your stata, so all, result that you have in this window will be gone, right? That's why you need to create, the log file before you do anything. Okay. So we mentioned, how to create, the log, file by this, command that I just, showed to you. Right. You can, create, the log file and name, the file. Then, the result and the command that, you done, will be, saved in that, file. Okay. Dr. Abdullah,
Yes.
I think, there is a problem in here. I cannot, how can I get rid of, this? Because I cannot, see the full screen in here. Okay. Wait.
Uh,
Okay. Yes,
Maybe
I move it like this.
you
Okay.
skip. Okay, you do skip first.
Okay. Okay, guys. Now, where are, where is, my data? Okay. Some may ask me, what is, my data? I cannot, see, my data. Okay. Now, we have, as mentioned in the slides, we have, data, editor, and we have, data, browser. Okay. Now, here you can, see your data. Okay. Now, what is, the difference? You can see, your data either by clicking on the data editor or, data browser. Both of them will show you your, data. Now, what is, the difference of the data editor and, data, browser? From its name, data editor allow you to edit your data. But, data browser will not, allow you to edit, your data. You can just, observe your data, but you will not be able to adjust, the data. And that's why we usually refer to the data editor. Okay. For example, let me, open, data browser. Okay. This is, the data browser, and this is, these are, my data, right? The variables and data. If I want to adjust, a variable, for example, as you can see, stata will not, allow me to, adjust because I'm using, the data browser. But if I want, to adjust, the data, I have to use, the data editor, right? Okay. So I can, adjust, my data. For example, if I want to, make this, as one, so data will ask me, okay, do you want to change, the value of that, observation or not? If I want, just, press yes. If not, I say, no. Okay. So this is, the difference between, the data editor and the data browser. Okay. Now, okay, the do file, guys, you can, create, a do file, from, here, and here you can, create, the log, file. And we have, discussed, the importance of, both, the do file and, the log, file. Now, just, allow me to show you, my, do file. Okay. Uh, I just stop sharing this. Okay. Okay, this is, my do file, as you can see, guys. So all my commands are saved in here. So if I want to work on this, project, next time, there is no need for me to write, the command, again and again. Just, I copy and paste, from here. Okay. So this is, my do file. Okay. Now, there is, one thing that I want you to know about, this file, the do file. Here we have, two icons in here in the toolbar. Okay, we have, this, icon and this, this, two icons, right? So both of them will execute, the command that you want. So if you want to execute, to run, a command, okay, you have, to select, the command and then, press on, the run. Here we have, run, and here we have do. Both of them will execute, the command. Now, what is, the difference between them? The difference between, the run and, do command is that, run will execute, the command, but it will not, show you, the result. It will not, show you, the command that has been, executed. Okay, but for do will execute, the command, and the result and the command that you have, executed will be shown in the result window. That's why we usually use, the do command in here. Okay, so as you can see here, there is, lines in here that shows you the result, and the command will be, reflected in the result, window. If you don't select, if you don't, select, a file, right? Sorry, if you don't select, a command and you press on do, so the do will, run all commands that you have in this file. So you need to bear in mind, before, pressing on the do, you need to select, the command that you want to execute. Because, if you just, press on this, command, on this, toolbar in here, so the stata will execute all commands together, and you will have, a problem to stop, stata, right? Okay, one thing, before we finish with this, with the, do command, guys, is that when you have, commands that, runs, over, one line. Okay, for example, you have, a command that, has, two lines or, three, lines. Okay, so in this case, if your command runs, over in one line, you need to, write, this, three slash in here, right? Okay, this, three, slash will, help stata to identify, these, three lines or, two lines as one command. Okay, when you write, the command in the command window, even though, the command, runs, over, one line, there is no problem. But, the problem is when, you have, the command in the do file. So if you have a command in the do file and the command runs over in one line, you need to break, the first line with this, three slash, right? You need to break, the first line by this, three, slash. Okay. So I hope that, the do file is, clear to you guys. Okay, what else that we have in this, do file? I don't think that we have, yeah, okay. How we create, a look file, as I mentioned to you guys, to create, a look file, just, write, look using, then name, the your project, name, your file, any name that you want. For example, I work on, women on the board of director. So I named, my, file as women. Then, comma, look, then, replace. So allow me to just, create, file to show you how this will be, shown. Okay. Oh, I moved this. It's blocking on my command. How I move this, doctor?
Okay, maybe you can fix it again.
Huh?
You can come back to it again.
I want to get rid of this because it's blocking on my, window. Okay, for example, in here, you see when I create, the when I creating the look file, as you can see, the stata will show you, the direction of the file that you have, the look file that you have, created, and the date and time. Uh, Occasionally, the file will be, created and saved uh, in the same, direction of the place that you have, saved, stata in. Okay. For example, if you have, your stata in the desktop, the look file will be saved in the desktop. If you have your stata and in the, for example, D or C, the look file will be, the direction of the look file will be, there. Okay. So as you can see here,
Maybe, doctor, the question is how to write the command from where we learn to write the command. We are
okay,
as beginners because we don't know anything about the software yet. Maybe you
okay,
can, yeah, just show us simply how we write the command, for example, at the beginning.
how to write a command, you need to know what commands that you want to use. For example, if you want to write, if you want to run, a summary, descriptive, statistics, for example, you have to use, summary. Okay. For example, summary, and then, the variable. We will go through it, so we will use, the command. There are two ways to ask, stata uh, to do anything, for you. Either you write a command. For example, if I want to ask stata to provide me with the descriptive analysis, right? So there are two ways. Either to use, the command window if if you are familiar with the commands, right? So because, for me, I am familiar, with commands, so I know, all commands that I want to use. So I can just, write the command in this, command window. Other way, guys, is to use, the pull down, here menu, the pull down menu. Okay, if you don't like, the command, okay, if you cannot, memorize, the command, you can, use, the pull down menu in here, right? For example, if you want to know statistic, descriptive, right, you just, press in here and choose what you want to know from stata, right? If you want to have a regression, you just, go and, see where you can, find, the regression. If you want to know the graphs, here you can, request, stata to create, graphs for you. So it's up to you whether you want
Yes.
to write a command or just to use, the pull down, menu.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Maybe let me, if you have any questions, maybe you can ask, please, dear student. You can ask any question if you want, and this it is very easy. Also, if we want to see like we do in Excel data analysis, also you have here command. Maybe Dr. Rodwan he give us like professional way when they come directly write command. If you are still the beginners, you don't know the commands. Maybe also you can use the tab in up like statistics also for analysis and graphs
Yeah,
data, and you can use this commands. You don't need to
you don't have to write the
like,
command.
yeah, you don't need to memorize commands and come to command here to command to write them one by one. Also maybe because time by time you will learn, so you don't need to go to tab in up and after that click the list to find what you do. Maybe easier for you even in Excel if you see, instead of we go to data analysis, after that we choose regression or we choose descriptive statistic, then we come to find the analysis, we can just write in cell. If you just write in cell sum, you can collect. If you write regression, just reg equal reg, then you will find the same way. Okay, maybe if you have any question you can ask from our guest lecturer, he will answer you. Okay, sorry doctor, thank you, maybe you can continue.
Okay. Now, we have learned the importance of log file and how we create, the log file, and the importance of, the do file and how we create, the do file and the windows. Now we get, familiar with, we get, familiar a little bit, with this data. Now let us, continue with the slides to see what we have. Okay. Okay, guys, let us now discuss about data structure. We have three types of structures for our data. We have cross-sectional data, we have panel data, and we have time series data. And I presume some of you may know the difference between these three structures of data. Cross-sectional data, guys, is when we have, for example, many, units or, firms, for example, entities, whether they are, firms, banks, whatever they were, okay, for, one time period, for 1 year. So if our data was structured as this, form, so we consider it as, cross-sectional data, okay? Now, panel data, the structure of panel data is when we have, uh, many entities, whether they are firms, banks, countries, whatever they were, and we have, many years, right? Unlike cross-sectional data. So in that case, our data should be structured in the panel data form. Time series data, guys, is that when we want to explore some factors that may affect, one country in particular for many years, right? So in that case, we will use, the structure of time series, data. This is, the difference of the how data should be, structured. Okay, so it depends on the nature of your data, whether your data are panel data, cross-sectional data, or time series, data. Now, for the purpose of this lecture, we will emphasize cross-sectional data, and if we have time, we will go through panel data. Time series data, of course, they need a separate lecture because they are a little bit complicated. Okay, but as economics, you need to know about time series data. Now, we will start with the summary statistic for cross-sectional data. We will start with the cross-sectional data. Now, summary statistic. There are different commands in stata to ask stata to provide us with the descriptive analysis. Right. So we can write sum, then followed by the variables. Right. Just write the word sum, then followed by the variables. Okay. If you write the sum followed by variable, stata will bring a line after five variables. So after five variables, stata will bring you underline. Okay, if I don't want stata to bring this line because I want just to simply copy the descriptive analysis from the log file and put it in my article. When I write article, I don't want this line, right? So what I have to do? So in that case, I will write the same command, sum followed by the variable, then comma separate 0. So I'm requesting stata to delete the line that the underline that comes after the five variables, right? Okay, to make it easy for me just to copy from the log file and put it in my paper. Okay, now we have if we want to know more details, because if you use the sum command, of course stata will provide you with the minimum, maximum number of observation. Okay, maybe squeeze and cortices, right? Okay, standard division. But if I want more details, right? If I want more details, like the percentiles and the median, right? So in that case, I will write the command sum, then followed by the variables, then comma and detail. Okay, so theta will provide me with more detail, like the percentiles, median, right? 25 percentile, the median, and 75 percentile. Okay, now the most popular command to provide descriptive analysis in stata that I'm using, and most researchers use, is tab state. Okay, tab state command. So tab state command, you just write tab state command, then followed by the variables, right? Then you write the statistic that you want, stata, to bring out for you. For example, guys, I'm requesting on stata to show me the number of observation, the mean, standard deviation, minimum, maximum, squeeze, and cortices. Now, if you don't write the CS, so if you don't write the CS, the stata will provide you the variables in columns. But we don't want to know the variables to be, in columns, because when you read, articles, of course, the variables usually will come in on rows, not, in columns, right? So we don't want, waste time, then, bring, the variables to be in rows, right? So there is a command, or there is a way to ask stata to bring, the, variables in rows instead of bringing them, in columns, right? So I will write, table state command, followed by variable, then the statistic, that I wash stata to provide me with. Then I write C, and in the bracket, I write S. So I'm requesting stata to bring, me the variables, on rows instead, of bringing them, in columns, right? The good thing, about the table state, command is that you can request stata to provide you with the descriptive, summary statistic for your variables in two groups. For example, if you are testing, the age, right? The age of, gender. So the grouping variable in here is your gender, male and, female, right? So I want to stata to provide me with this, a statistic for the two groups, male and female. So I use, the by option. So after the command of table state, I write, by, then the grouping, variable. For example, here I write, the gender. Okay. So stata will provide me with this, descriptive statistic for male, and then, for female, and therefore the all, symbol. Okay. Now, if we want to get, familiar with this, command, just, allow me to do it, in stata. Okay. Okay, guys. Here, guys, my do file. For example, as you can see, I'm asking stata to, okay. I'm asking stata to provide me with the summary statistic of these, variable. So as you can see, summary, then, followed, by all, variables that I want. So we will see if we don't, write, the separate, zero, what will, happen, okay? So as you can see, guys, when, I did not, specify, the separate, zero, stata bring me underline after, by, variables, right? I don't want, this, underline, right? So what I have to do, as I just, mentioned to you, comma, then, separate, then in bracket, right? Just, zero, okay? So as you can see, stata deleted, for me, the underline. So all comma, all, variables, the 10 variables come together in one, table. Okay. Now, the most, popular, command, as I just, mentioned to you guys, is, tab state. Okay. So this is, the tab state, command, guys. Okay. Now, if I don't, specify, let us, do, to see, the difference. Let us, do this, first. When I write in CS, as you can see here, guys, when I write in the CS, my variables comes in row as I wish, as I wanted, right? Because I want, my variables comes to in row, and the statistics comes on columns, right? But if I don't write, the CS, so my variables comes, in, columns, while, the statistics comes, in row. Okay. So this is, the difference, right? Okay. Now,
Okay.
what else that we have for, uh,
Sorry, doctor.
yeah,
Maybe my students, maybe if you feel little confused about variables, yeah. Variables here, it doesn't mean, yeah, because here we see Dr. Redhwan, he used different variables and he give them like sample. Maybe you feel little confused. Variables, what we mean by variables means any groups of anything, okay? Groups for data. Maybe we put group A, group B, group C. Okay, so all this you see variables means this information from about anything. Okay, maybe your score for this for statistics, this is variable, one variable. Maybe your age, this is variable. Maybe another thing, your performance, this is one variable. Okay, so these all what we mean by variables. And here don't feel confused because these variables, it is just an example. The important thing is now how to do, how we can learn how to do the command, how to change data from vertically to horizontally, or how to change column to row. Okay, we are talking about command, so don't think much about what is that or asking. We can learn today introduction this we, to understand how to use stata. Maybe later you can learn more about this. This is just chance to learn something new. Okay, doctor, thank you very much. Sorry to cut you again. You can
it's
continue.
okay. Thank you, Doctor. Okay. What still that we have, in here, guys, is that, okay, we move to, we discuss about, the, are we, what is, mm,
Yes,
sorry,
doctor, your
sorry, sir.
presentation again.
Okay.
Okay, okay, we can see it now.
Okay, guys. We finish with the summary statistic, guys, right? Okay. Just allow me to make it, very big. Okay, we move to the correlation. I think you know what is the correlation, right? The correlation is the correlation between the two independent variables, right? Okay. Now we have two types of correlation. We have person product moment correlation, and we have Spearman correlation. Now what is the difference between the person product moment correlation and the Spearman correlation? Now, person product moment correlation, guys, can be used when your data is, is normally, distributed. You don't have, the normality, problem, right? Okay. So as you can see, the person, product moment correlation, it focuses on the mean, values, unlike, Spearman, correlation that is, calculated based on ranks, right? We can use the Pearson correlation when our data are interval variables, while we use in Spearman correlation when our data are ordinary variables, right? Okay, this is the difference, right, between the Pearson and Spearman correlation. Pearson correlation is called the yeah is where your data are normally distributed. And then sperma correlation is the cousin of the Pearson, correlation. As you know, guys, the correlation should be, between, -1, and the correlation between, two variables should be between, minus, 1 and, +1. So if the coefficient of the, correlation of the two, variables fill in this, rank, +1 and, -1, that means, the two variables that are strongly, or highly, correlated, right? Now, scholars suggest that, values, below 0.3, when you have, the coefficient is 0, below 0.3, that means you have a little correlation, or there is no correlation between the two variables, right? Okay, but you have to bear in mind that it depends on your sample size, because sometimes a coefficient that is blue than 0.30 may be significant, right? We can see some coefficient that is less than 0.3, but they are statistically significant. Why? Because we might have a very big symbol size, right? So it depends on your symbol size, right? Okay. Now, what the commands that we can use to run the correlation, whether the Pearson correlation or Spearman correlation. Okay. Now, parametric correlation is the Pearson correlation. Non-parametric correlation is the Spearman correlation. The command for running the parametric correlation, the Pearson correlation, guys, is the BW correlation, the pairwise correlation. Right. Okay. Now, when you have no missing value, if your data does not have any missing value, I suggest you to use the pairwise correlation. But if your data having your missing value, so in that case, instead of using the pairwise correlation, I'm suggesting you to use only correlation. Correlation CORR, only command, without the DW. Why? Because if your data having some missing values, the pairwise correlation will restrict the result for this data without missing values. Okay, given that my data I have full data, I don't have any missing value, I simply just use the pairwise correlation. Okay, so this is the pairwise correlation. This is the command pairwise correlation, then followed by the variables, right? Okay, okay, then comma, and I'm requesting stata to provide me with the number of observation, the significant level, and I'm requesting stata to start the coefficient with the significant level of 0.05 or beta. So it depends on you what you want from stata to do for you, right? So here, as I told you, I'm requesting stata to provide me with the number of observation, significant value at the significant level, and that to start to bring star close to the coefficient with the significant level of 0.05 or beta, right? For the Spearman correlation, guys, the command is in Spearman, then followed by the variables. Then I'm requesting stata to provide me with the coefficient, number of observation, the significant level, and again to start the coefficient with a significant level of 0.05 or beta. Okay, so this is the correlation command in stata. Okay, if you want, just I will go to the stata to show you how we use this command, okay, for correlation. Okay, now we go to stata, and this is my do file. This is my the pairwise correlation. Okay, so as you can see, guys, I have written the command followed by all variables, then comma, number of observations, significant level, and I'm asking stata to start or to bring me star close to the coefficient with the significant level of 0.05 or beta. Okay. So when I'm writing the command, okay, this is the correlation matrix, guys. The correlation matrix. So as you can see, I'm having the coefficient. I'm having the significant level and number of observation. Okay, I have number of observation. So as you can see, stata, as I'm requesting, bring me a star close to the coefficient with the significant level of 0.05 or beta. Those coefficient without star, that means there is no correlation between the two variables. Okay, there is no correlation between the two variables. Okay, I hope it's clear, guys. Okay, for Spearman, correlation, guys. The command for Spearman correlation is in here. The Spearman, correlation. Even in Excel, you can, use, the correlation, right?
Yes, in Excel we can use correlation, regression, but actually we didn't come to regression yet. Maybe our next class will be about regression, so it is okay. Maybe you see now how to do this analysis in stata. Next class we will study also about regression. So no
Okay.
worries. Just learn as much as you can.
Okay. This is, the Spearman correlation. Okay. For non-parametric, data, whereby your data are not normally distributed. So here I'm running the Spearman correlation. I think, okay, here just okay. This is the Spearman correlation. As you can see, guys, I requested, stata to bring me the coefficient, number of observation, and again, to bring me star close to coefficient with the significant level of 0.05 or beta. Okay. Okay, guys. Any question about the correlation before we move to the another level? Any question, guys, about the correlation?
You can ask if you have any questions. Maybe you can ask, but if there is no question, if you are still little confused, it is okay. Yeah, this the first check to understand or the first check to learn something new. So I hope there is no problem.
Okay, let us now move to the.
Okay, we continue.
We'll continue our discussion. Okay. Now let us discuss about differences in means and medians. It is practical for us to see whether our data has mean and median differences before we go through the multivariate analysis, before we go through the regression analysis. Why? Because that will help us to see what kind of result that we will obtain from the regression analysis. It will provide you with the initial idea of the result that you may obtain when run your regression. Okay. Now, for differences in mean, we have the t-test. I presume that the t-test, right? Even in Excel we can use the t-test, right? Okay. So t-test or independent two symbol t-test, as I mentioned, will help us to know if there are main differences in data that might be interested for us to continue with the regression analysis, right? Now we use two tests if we have two groups, like if I want to see the difference in terms of egg between male and female, okay, or if I want to see the difference of the health state between male and female, so I can refer to the t-test. If you have more than two groups, so in that case you cannot use the t-test, you have to use ANOVA, right? But if you have only two groups, so in that case you can simply use the simple t-test. Okay. And remember, guys, that the grouping variable of yours should be a dummy variable. Okay, should be dummy variable. Now the command in stata to run the t-test, the main difference is simply just write t-test, then followed by the variable that you want to see the difference in mean, then by option, and then the grouping variable, okay, the grouping variable that you want to see. Like here, if I want to see, the health state between, the gender, the grouping variable male and female, right? Okay. Now, when we run t-test, stata will assume that, the variance, are equal. There is no difference, in the variance. There is, equality in variance when we, run, the t-test. Now, if we want to see whether, the variances are not, equal, and there is, a difference, in variance, there is, a command in stata that we can refer to it, and that is, called, leaving test. Okay, leaving, test. The command for leaving test is sd test, then, the variable, then, you write, the grouping, variable. Okay. Now, man, Whitney, U test is for non-parametric, variable, right? When your variables are not, normally distributed, you can use, the man, Whitney U test. Man Whitney U test, guys, shows you the difference in terms of ranks, or in terms of, the median. If you want to see, the difference in terms of median, so you can refer to this, test. And you can use, the man with me you test, guys, if your variable is, ordinal in level. Okay, they are in nature. They are ordinal in nature. You can use, the man with me you test. The command, in stata, guys, is just, write, the rank sum, command followed by variable. Then again, the grouping variable, as you can see here. Okay. Now, let me show you how it can be done in stata. It's a little bit, confused, but, I hope that, it will be.
Yes, doctor, actually we studied this. Yeah, please. We studied T, how to do T analysis, Z analysis. Okay, now we learn them how to do in Excel also. Please, now you understand how we can do them in stata. It is the same way, but we by using stata. So
Okay.
it is like
Okay.
we see T test and Z test, this to compare two groups, how to see differences, or there is differences, no differences, they are same or they are not same. So please, you can see here also.
Okay. Now, as I told you, the command is t-test, then, followed by the variable, then the grouping variable. For example, here, my, variable that I want to see, that its difference in mean, or the mean, difference was, for example, in the number of, female in the company board of director. And the grouping variable was, the free cash flow, the level of free cash flow, right? This is, dummy variable, should be, dummy variable, right? Okay, you have to put it, in bracket. Okay, let us see how we do. Okay, this is, the outcomes from the t-test. So as you can see, guys, I'm having, the main of, number of, women in the board of director for firms with the low free cash flow and firms with the high free cash flow, right? Okay, and I'm having the information on the standard deviation and standard errors, and, the 95% of confidence, interval. Okay, in the next line, I have, the combined information, then, the differences in the mean. Okay, difference in the mean of number of, women in the board of director for firms with the low free cash flow and firms with the high free cash flow, along with the standard errors and, the confidence, level, or significant level. Now, what is, important for us to look at is, the T statistic, right? Okay, this is, the T that you have to report, right? T is, equals, minus 1.47, right? And the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis states that there is, no difference in mean. That means, there is no difference in number of, women in the company board of director for, firms with the low free cash flow and firms with the high free cash flow. This is, the null hypothesis. Now remember, guys, the null hypothesis is, the hypothesis that we want to reject, right? We want to go against, right? Now, here we have, three outcomes in here, but usually we concentrate on what is, in the middle, right? Okay. So in the middle, the hypothesis is that there is, somehow, difference, right? It tells you that there is, somehow difference in the means of the number of, women in the board of director, right? Now, when I look at, the significant level, it's not, statistically significant because it's bigger than, 0.005, right? That means I cannot, reject, that null hypothesis. I have to accept the null hypothesis. I have to assume that there is no main differences for number, of female for frames with the low free cash flow and those with the high free cash flow. Okay. Remember, guys, I mentioned that, when we run the t-test, the outcomes come with the equal variances. We assume that, the variances, are equal. But you need to make sure that the variances, of course, are equal or not. There is, a test, in stata, as I told you, you just write an SD test here. Just, let me remove this. SD test. This is, will tell you whether, the variance are equal or not. All right. Okay. Now, here, the null hypothesis. The null hypothesis told you that, the variance are equal. The variance, are equal. So when we look at, the alternative hypothesis, which means, there is somehow differences in the variances, we cannot, support the alternative hypothesis. We support, the null hypothesis, which means, that, the variances, are equal. Okay. So we support the null hypothesis that, the variance, is equal. Now, let's assume that, our variances were not, equal. So in that case, you need to write, comma after, this command. You just, write, comma, and then, equal, right? Equal to make, the variances, equal. Okay. This is, for a t-test, guys. Okay. Now, what else that we have, guys? I just okay. Now we have, the rank sum for non-parametric. Okay, if we want to see, that difference in median, because, we have to check the main difference and as well, the median, difference for our, variable. I want to check, the median difference, as well. So I'm using, the rank sum, test. All right. Okay. So as you can see here, guys, this is, the outcomes in here. When I'm comparing, the differences in terms of, median, as you can see here, the null hypothesis state that there is no difference in terms of, median between, the two groups, right? But when I look at, alternative hypothesis, which is, there is, a difference in the median, right? So I'm supporting my alternative, hypothesis. Why? Because the significant level here is less than 0.005. That means, I am having to, reject, the null hypothesis, which states that, there is no difference in terms of, median. So my data, although does not have, median main differences, but, they have, median differences. They don't have, main difference, but, they have, median, difference. Right. Okay. Now, before we jump to next level, is there any difficulties for, main and median test? Is it clear, guys?
Okay, you
The
Okay.
logic is the same. It's just, the way that you need to learn it in stata. But, the logic and the theory is, the same. Similar. There is no, difference. Right. But you need to learn how to do it, in stata. Okay. Now, let us, jump to the what we have, next. Okay, guys. Now we discussed about, the median differences. Now let us, jump to the regression, right? So after we have, checked for the mean and median differences, guys, and we provide, summary statistics. Now we want to run, our, regression. Of course, regression, guys. When you run a regression and when you develop your model, you want to simply to test, the relationship between your dependent and independent, variables, right? As Dr. Abdullah just mentioned, variables could be, anything, right? Could be, the GDP, oil, prices, right? Okay. For example, if you want to see, the impact on, the GDP on the, country, economy, right? All the oil, prices and impact on the, country economy, right? So in that, case, your independent, variable will be, the GDP and, the oil, prices, while, your dependent, variable will be, the country economy as an example, right? Okay. So this is, the model for a simple, regression, right? So y represent what? The dependent, variable. And here we have the intercept. Then we have, the independent here, the dependent variable. Here we have the independent, the coefficient and, independent, variable and the standard, error, right? So standard error, guys, refer to the difference, between, the actual values and the predicted, values. So the difference between, the actual and predicted, values goes to the standard errors. Okay. Now, for cross-sectional purposes, guys, to check, the assumption we have in the cross-sectional, data, we have, how many assumptions? We have, 4 assumptions, right? To make sure that, the result that you obtain are reliable or not. Okay. The first assumption is, normality, guys. Second assumption is hetero. The third assumption is the multipolarity, and finally the model specification. We will go to discuss this, assumption in the more details, and we will refer to stata to see how we do them. Okay. Now, what is, normality, guys? Simply, guys, normality refer to the normal distribution of your error terms. Okay. Whether your error terms are normally distributed or not. Right. Now, how we test the normality, of the residual in stata, guys? There are, 2 tests, right? To test about, the normality of our residual in stata. We have, the Shapiro test, and we have, the ski test. Normally in economic and, accounting, financing, field, we don't use, the Shapiro. Why? Because we usually deal with the large sample size. So if you have large sample size, of course, you will not be referring to this, Shapiro walk test, because that test is normally for, small sample size. So in economic, accounting, finance, we use usually the ski test, and to test the normality of our residual, just write ski test and the residual. All right. Okay. Now, normally we test for the residual for the whole model to see whether, our whole model or, our residual from the model are normally distributed. But, sometimes you can, test the normality for a specific, variable as well. If you want to test, the normality, if, a specific, variable in your model, you can do it, right? So you can use, the same command, ski test, then followed by the variable that you want to test its, normality. Okay. Now, okay, guys. Before we jump to stata, let us continue with the outlier detection. Of course, when we discuss about normality, we need to know about the outliers, because normality problem comes along with the outliers, because outliers, the existence of outliers will drive the normality problem. Okay. Now there are different ways in stata on how, even in SPSS, right? On how we deduct our outliers. Okay. One of the ways, guys, is to predict your residual, the standardized residual, then list your residual, right? After you run your regression, you predict your standardized residual, then list the residual, then those residual, standardized residual with values in excess of either minus 3.5 or more plus 3.5, they will be considered as potential outliers. Then you can delete them. All right, you just go through the list that you have created, then identify those values with either bigger than minus 3.5 or plus 3.5. Those will be considered as potential outliers. Then you can decide to delete them or not. Right. Other way is to use the distance. Okay. How we do distance? Again, you need to predict coq, right? Okay. Then comma coq is d. Then list coq, if coq bigger than 4 divided by number of your observation. So when you do this, stata will provide you with the list of potential outliers. Then you can decide to delete them. Of course, guys, in economic, accounting, and finance, we don't want to delete our observations, right? Even though some of the variables that are not normally distributed, and they have outliers, right? Or our model having outliers, because we spend time in collecting our data, right? So there is no need to delete the outliers. We have to deal with the outliers to reduce our normality, right? Instead, guys, there is very, very good command. All scholars, whether they are economic, accounting or finance, they use this command, right? This command is oneser command. Oneser to, then the variable that you want to oneser, then you comma cut 199 if you want to this level of significance, or you can specify any level of significance. For example, you can put here 595. Okay. So what is the purpose of oneser command? Okay, guys. Now oneser command, when you specify this cuts 1.99, so stata will identify the potential outlier from the top and from the bottom, or 1% of the outliers in the top and in the bottom. Then what stata will do is to convert these unexpected values and bring them to be bring them to the normal distribution. To make it more clear, guys, let us consider the number of meetings for a company, board of director of a company. Usually, either in Malaysia or Indonesia, the board of director meets 4 times a year. This is that what usually been done, practice for more companies whether around the world, whether in Malaysia or in Indonesia, right? Okay. The number of meetings for board of director is 4. But sometimes we might have some companies that they have might 15 number of meetings, 22 number of meetings within the year, and other companies companies, they have, no meeting within the years. So as you can see, we have, some outliers, some unexpected, values, right? From the top and from the bottom, right? So what stata will do for this, unusual, values 22 and 15, the stata will bring them to the closest, normal distribution. Let us assume, the closest, number of board meeting was, 4 or 5. So stata will convert this, 22 number of, board meeting, or, the 15 number of, board meeting to become, 4 or 5. And from the bottom, for those, companies without, any board, meeting, the stata will convert them to the closest, number from, the bottom. Okay. So there is no need to delete, the observation. Okay. As long as we can, convert, them to be, normally distributed. Okay. Now let us go to stata to make it, more clear about, the normality and how we deal with the outliers. Okay, guys. Okay, guys. So as you can see here, guys, uh, I'm running, the regression because, if you want to test for normality, you have to run the regression. How to run a regression, guys? Just, write, reg command followed by, the variables. Then you have to predict, the residual. Right? Predict, then, the residual. Okay. Now, if you want to test, for the normality, for example, right? Okay. This is, I'm testing for the normality for my residual, as you can see, guys, here. Okay. Because I already set, the residual in my, document. Here is the test, of, normality for the whole model to see whether, the whole model is normally distributed or it's not, normally distributed. Okay. Now, the null hypothesis, guys, state that, the whole model is normally distributed. Right. This is, the null hypothesis. Right. Okay. Now, to see whether I have to support the null hypothesis or not, I need to refer to the alternative, hypothesis. Alternative, hypothesis state, otherwise, which means, my model is not, normally distributed. Given that, the significant level here is less than 0.005, so that means, I'm supporting, the alternative, hypothesis. I'm rejecting, the null hypothesis, which means, that my model is not normally distributed. My model is not, normally distributed. Now, you can also make, a graph. I presume that, you know about, the BB, graph to test for normality in the SPSS. Right. We can do the same in stata by writing, a norm command, then, the residual to see. Okay, this is, the graph. If you look at the graph for my whole, model, guys, I'm plotting the residual to see whether, my model is normally distributed or not. Right. So as you can see, guys, there is, a departure from the diagonal, right? Because, the line is not, close to the diagonal, which means, my model is not, normally distributed. Okay, my model is not, normally distributed. How we deal with the normality, guys? As I told you before, we need to, for example, see what, variables that are not, normally distributed by using the same command ski-test, and then, followed, by variables. Then when we deduct, those, variables that are not, normally distributed, we can use, the command, the Wanzor, command, the Wanzor, command. Now let me show you how, the Wanzor command will do, in stata, guys. Yeah.
Doctor, maybe we still have 5 minutes. If you just give us simple example of regression, it will be okay because we didn't have that much time.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so maybe 5 minutes. After that, we can have questions, or we have questions from our students.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. This is the regression, guys. The simple, regression. Okay. So as you can see, write the command, rig, just simply write rig, then followed by your variable. Dependent, variable, then, all independent and control, variables. As simple as this. Just, write, rig, then, followed by the variables, dependent, independent, and, control, variables, as you can see in here. Okay. So when we do it, in stata, this is, my, regression. Okay. So this is, the regression, guys. As you can see, I have, the R square, the adjusted, R square. My model is, statistically significant when I look at, the probability of, the F, value. And here my, dependent, variable, and all, the independent and control, variables, as you can see. Okay. I presume that you know how to either, support or reject your hypothesis. You need to look at, the significant, value and the T, right? If the T is bigger than 0.005, that means your hypothesis for this, particular variable is supported, right? Like here, we can, support, the result for this, variable, right? For this, variable. Here, the significant level is at, 0.10. So it depends on you whether you want to support or not. Because, some, scholars argue that, the significant level should be, at the level of 0.005 or beta. Okay. Here as well, you can, support or not. So it depends, on the journal, and it depends on you. Uh, uh, so that's, the regression. Okay. So if there is no much time, guys, I open, the floor for the question.
Okay, thank you much. Thank you very much, Dr. Redhwan, for this class and for this explanation of data analyzing. Maybe now we have a chance to ask any information. If you didn't understand anything, or you want to ask more about how we use stata, how can we download it, how we use this, maybe you can ask question directly. You can raise hand. Also, you can write in chat. If you want to write question in chat, I will read for you, or you can raise hand and say by yourself. I will start these questions maybe with Dr. Redhwan to see us how we can enter data to the stata. For example, after we collect our data, maybe
Yeah.
for our research, or maybe we collect data for our thesis from somewhere, then we want to put this data from Excel. For example, we put our data in Excel. How we can put this data to
Yeah.
stata?
Yeah. There are two ways. Thank you, Dr. Abdullah. There are two ways to import your data in, Stata. Uh, Commonly, guys, we use, before we enter our data in Stata or any statistic, software like, if you use SAS, R, or SPSS, our data will be, in Excel file, right? So simply, we can, just, copy the data from the Excel file, then press on data editor in here, right? Then paste, your data in here. As simple as this. Copy your data from the Excel file, then, paste them in there, in this, sheet, then, all your data will be reflected in here, in the data editor. Uh, Other way, if I'm not mistaken, you can import your data from here, from file. Okay. But, for me, I'm just to make it, very simple for me. I just, copy, the data from Excel file, then I paste it in here in data editor.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Maybe we can see if there is any question. Uh, Please, if you have any questions, maybe we can have this 10 minutes for questions. You can ask anything from Dr. Redhwan. You can ask about how to use this, how we can download it. Maybe it is free to be download. For example, Dr. Redhwan, if we want to download this from internet, or maybe we have to buy it.
Uh, I think, you can download it, free trial. Uh, but, for us, I didn't use, the free trial, but, some friends, mentioned that, the download, the new version of the stata, because now we have, version 16. This, version that I'm using is, old version is, 12, right? Now, they created, a new version, which is, 16. Some of my friends mentioned to me that, they download it and install it, on their, computer for free. But I'm not sure whether, in future, they might have a problem, or stata will stop working for them, because we usually download and install this software by the computer center in our university. They might have a license or some sort of this.
Okay, thank you very much. So you can maybe try, if you want to download this software, you can try download, and you see it is also easy to start. You can use this sheet, the beginning sheet, to put your data. For example, now we just use simple data in Excel, like when to compare comparison between two groups, when we want to do Z test or T test, or in next class also we will learn how to do regression. And then you can see we can just put data here simply into groups, then we do the correlation analysis and regression analysis. We have there one question from Mr. Maybe Dr. Redhwan, you can read the questions there, and if you
I'm preferring if just speak to me. Why you just chatting?
yes, Mr. Abdul Rahman, Abdul Sattar, maybe you can talk directly. You can ask your question directly.
Okay, here is the cross-sectional dependency test importance as autocorrelation and hetero. Of course, it's very important for cross-sectional dependency. We have to test the cross-sectional dependency. Yeah, because we
Assalamu
want to. Yeah.
alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Doctor, I just want to ask what the difference between what we've just done and the panel data. It seems as if what we've just treated is all about cross-sectional, sir.
Yeah, because I wanted to share with you the manual data, but there is no time. The problem is of time.
Okay.
Of course, the way that we have to treat panel data is different from cross-sectional data, and the tests that the assumption and the tests that we need to use for panel data are quite different from the cross-sectional data.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I shared my file with Dr. Abdullah, so you can refer to Dr. Abdullah. So all commands regarding the cross-sectional and panel data in there, you can use them.
Okay.
Maybe Doctor, you can provide us with these commands as well, so we can use them as example, to learn.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. You give us, because these commands, I think maybe Dr. Redhwan, you write them by yourself, maybe.
No, this command they are used by scholars before me, but yeah, I'm using them. They are in the slides that I have shared with you, Dr. Abdullah. So all commands they are in the slides.
Okay, maybe you can share the slides with us, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, I will share this in our group in WhatsApp also. I will share in my class.
Okay. regarding this question of Abdul Sattar, if I'm not mistaken, is the cross-sectional dependency important? Of course, they are important. Why? Because we want to see whether, the error terms of every, individual, uh, of every entity or every firm are not, correlated with other, firms. Because if they are correlated, there is, a cross-sectional dependency, and this, problem might, affect, our, output, because we want to see, the pure impact of, our independent, variable on the dependent, variable. That's why we need to test for cross-sectional dependency.
Yeah, actually, to be totally what we call like to be totally independent. I mean, there is this is the differences. We come back again to differences between dependent and independent variables, and we know it must be there is roles like must be normal distributed and this standard deviation, and there are many different tests. Like here today we learn cross-sectional test by Dr. Redhwan. Thank you very much, Doctor. I hope we have learned today how to start. Actually, it is we need, yes, of course, we need more time to learn this, and we need to study a little bit. But today I want from this to take when we hear that we have chance from Dr. Redhwan, he will come, and I said better we learn something new to be useful, and thanks to him, he learned us today how to start. It is just the beginning today. Now we learn little information about this program already, and now we can use this application. Maybe it is for you. You are still at the beginning. Yeah, it is new for you. For maybe 2 semesters, 3 semesters again, you will learn. If you learn from today, you start now. You can use YouTube also to see. You can read more information about how to use this application. It will be very good. What you call? You will have very good skills in analysis data. Also, don't forget we learn now just the basic in Excel. It is important to know how to deal with the variables, how to analyze data, but to be professional, you have to use more professional applications like SPSS, like today Stat, and there are many other applications. But as economist, at least when you study, you have to learn one or two of these applications. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Redhwan, for your coming today, and we would like to thank all our friends. There are also many friends joined us from out the class. Thank you for them, from maybe our university or out from university. Uh, that's all. Thanks everyone. Maybe Dr. Redhwan also. We hope to meet you again, inshallah, in another session. And okay, if you want to say something, Dr. Redhwan, this is so.
Uh, Thank you, all of you guys, and thank you, Dr. Abdullah, for providing me again, the opportunity to share, what I have, my mind with you. Uh, what I want to tell, the student is that, of course, SPSS, is good, but, from my, experience, SPSS, for us as, econometrics and researchers of, accounting and finance, fields will not, be beneficial. We have, to learn, this, softwares like, if use stata are, because, these, softwares will help us to deal with, a complicated, data set like, the panel data, time series, data. Of course, there is nothing that is, difficult if you want to learn, right? Because as Dr. Abdullah, mentioned, you can, refer to the YouTubes. So there are a lot of, videos on stata, if use R, SAS, whatever you want to learn. And the good thing about, the stata is that, there is no stata group, right? So in that group, there are a lot of, scholars that, they are very, very, very good, in stata. So you can, if you have any question, if you face any difficulties in dealing with this data, if you want to know about any command, so you can just pose your question in that group, and of course they will have time to answer you.
Okay. Maybe we come to the end. Thank you for your coming, Dr. Redhwan. Thank you for everyone today. He come to our class. We have to finish this class with Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you all.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
Thank
wabarakatuh.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Redhwan. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. All the best.
Bye, Sam.